Okay, so we are in August still, our last week of August, talking about will. Will, which is our power of choice and decision, which is commitment and willingness, which includes our innate capacity to direct, dictate, and determine in our lives. And so this is a really rich topic. There's so many different ways that we can come at it. So for today, we're going to choose our change. Now, what I thought about as I was deciding on choosing our change, what I thought about was, firstly, when you go to the grocery store and you give them $10 and it's only like $2.50, and they say, well, what change would you like? Do you want that? Do you want that in like toonies or loonies, or what do you want? And so that started me off with thinking about change. But then I also realized that we also choose our change in all of our life. We choose how we want to change, how we want to move forward. So my centering thought from 2 Corinthians, so we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is seen is eternal. What is seen unseen is eternal. Yes. What is seen is temporary. What is unseen is eternal. What is unseen, meaning God, the absolute, that is unchanging. Everything that we are in our lives, in our physical lives, is changing always. And then from Ernest Holmes, behind the visible and changeable is the changeless reality, the eternal one, working in time and space for the expression of itself. The divine ideas stand back of all human thought, seeking admittance through the doorway of mind. And that's from Ernest Holmes' New Science of Mind. So what we are is form. What we think we are is form. What we are is the divine in form. What we truly are is the divine in form. And so when we think that all I am is this body, or this feeling, or this thought, this belief, when we think that all we are is that in our only humanness, we miss out on that infinite divine life, that infinite power to choose our way, to choose who we are in this world and in this life. So we are that which is beyond all of this physicality. We are that which is beyond all of our experience. We are that which is the allness of our experience, as well as the allness of all experience. That is who we are. We have infinite access to all of that power. So everything in our physical experience is in the process of change. We are always in a process of changing everything, all the time. Every breath is a change. Every movement is a change. Every moment is a change from the last moment. There's a beautiful quote from Heraclitus. I never know how to pronounce that. He says, no man ever steps in the same river twice, for it's not the same river, and he's not the same man. And that's the truth with us, isn't it? That is our truth. And so when we take a look at this eternal one, this eternal reality that we are, when we take a look at this, that which is unseen, that is unchanging, when we look at that and come from that perspective, we know that deepening in prayer, what do we do in prayer? In prayer, we're not changing God, we're not changing the changeless, we're changing ourselves. That is all we ever do, and that is how we change our minds. So, as we change ourselves, really, that is the only thing that we can change. Changing ourselves is the only thing that we can change. We have no ability to change another person or another person's experience. We have no ability to change the world. Really, what we're doing is changing ourselves and changing our way of being in the world and adding a drop to the infinite ocean that overall brings about a newness of being. But we are not changing everything. We are simply changing ourselves within the everything. There's a beautiful line that Eric Butterworth says. He says, God is an allness in which we are an eachness. God is the allness of everything, and we are the eachness. We are that one single point, that one individualized point of that infinite divine light. Prayer does not change God, but it changes him who prays. Kierkegaard. So Eric Butterworth wrote, we are told to be still and know that I am God. Be still and know that I am a fulfilling expression of the allness of God, that I am whole, that I am complete, that there is a force, a process within me that is ever seeking to express itself, because that is what life is. It's constant in its expression of possibilities. If I can know this, if I can establish my identity within it, then I'm in the flow of evolution. And that evolution, what is evolution? Well, evolution is change. It's all change. It's always change, every moment, moment to moment. So to be in that flow of evolution is to be in the flow of change. And that means that we are in change in the way that we choose to be. We are in change in the way that we want to be, in the way that we are in the driver's seat of that change, that we are taking ourselves in the direction that we want to go in. We choose our change all the time. And this is the thing. We choose our change whether we recognize it or not, whether we realize it or not. And what happens is that sometimes the change we choose is to label an experience bad instead of good. And we move forward in badness instead of moving forward in goodness. Sometimes we react in pain and fear instead of responding in love. We change our way of moving forward by reacting in fear rather than in love. Sometimes I allow myself to feel stressed, to feel fear about the unexpected, instead of feeling delighted and excited about a surprise. We can choose how we move forward, and every choice we make is a choice to change. I choose to change my mind. I choose to change my mind from fear to love. I choose to change my mind from closed down to openly expressing. I choose how I move forward. There's a beautiful Myrtle Fillmore quote. I'm reading a lot of Myrtle Fillmore these days, and I just love her. She's so practical. This book, How to Let God Help You, is all about basically how to make your home and your family and your life work better with God principle working through you. And I think that's just beautiful. It's very down to earth. So she says, we are almost taken off our feet with the new ideas of what we are, for we are learning that we are not what we seem to be. We're not solid flesh and blood. We are really mind and spirit. The more quickly we find this out, the more quickly we apply it in our lives, so our world changes. And where she says our world changes, that means the world from my experience. That means the world that I experience through me, because I am the experiencer of God. I am the mind of God as it experiences itself through me. You know, God is unchanging. Therefore, in order to experience change, God needs us to be the experiencer of change. Can you imagine? There's a Star Trek episode that I watched recently, and you'll all get used to me talking about Star Trek, I'm sure. I love Star Trek. Anyway, this one immortal, from our perspective, being, very long-lived immortal being, was choosing that he wanted to die. He wanted to become mortal so that he could die. Because he had lived every possible expression in his immortal existence. He had lived every possible expression of what he could live. And he was done. His work was done. And I thought to myself as I was watching this, I was sort of reframing this in my own spiritual terms. And I think how wonderful it is that the immortal, absolute, infinite life that is God gets to experience change all the time through us. That we are the ones that create the changing because we are here to live out a life that is finite instead of infinite in that way. And how wonderful that is, that the divine has this ability to create wonder and surprise and unexpectedness within its changeless framework. So as we are looking to decide what change we want in our life, because we have that power, what do we do? What do we do? Well, so first thing we do is we use some of those other divine ideas, some of those other divine powers that we've talked about over the course of the year. I would say we start with maybe understanding and really leaning into what it is that we want, what it is that we would like to have expressed in the world around us, and then maybe dive into wisdom and discernment about what is best, not just what we want for ourselves in this moment, but what is best for us, and find ourselves within that wisdom. And then we employ a little bit of faith to say, yeah, I can do this. I can do this. God's got my back. The divine is behind me. The divine is within me. I know I can do this. And then we choose. And then we choose our change. So I wanted to talk a little bit about what that looks like. Because there have been so many times in my life, it's really hard to pick a time. There have been so many times in my life when I could have just allowed life to sort of carry me and choose for me, which is a choice, again, in itself. Or I could put myself into my own divine power and move myself forward. And so I'm going to give you an example, and some of you may have heard some of this story before already, but not all of you. So back in 2017, after a lifetime of having issues with my weight, I was on a roller coaster at my highest. I was 275 pounds. I went up, I went down, I went up, I went down, I went up, I went down. I was in 2017, after hearing about a program called Bright Line Eating, which is a food sobriety program for people with sugar and flour addiction. After hearing about that program about a year and a half beforehand, I had tried it in my own way, thinking that I could just do the parts of it that I wanted to do and not do the whole thing. You know, I was making choices. I was choosing my change meaning that I was choosing to do only part of it and not actually really truly work the program, and therefore not actually have the results that I wanted to have. But then at one point, after not having the results and kind of going back off the wagon again, I had a call to Jesus, as you might say. I went to a doctor and he put me on blood pressure medication. Now, blood pressure medication isn't the worst thing in the world. Lots of people are on it. I was 49 years old though, I didn't think that I was ready to be on blood pressure medication. And not only that, I talked to my kids, and my son said to me, "Oh, Mom, that's the slippery slope. That's when it starts, eh? If you can't get a handle on your blood pressure now, first you start taking this medication, what's next? What are you going to have to take next?" And that was my call to Jesus, really, for myself. That was my point of saying, okay, I got to get a handle on this. I want to be here as long as my parents have been on this earth. I want to be on this earth. I want to be here till I'm in my 80s or 90s. I don't want to have my body break down at this age already. So I did some discerning. I had already learned a lot about this Bright Line Eating program, so I understood what it was that I needed to do. I did some wisdom discerning for myself about what it is that was my best way of moving forward. My best way of moving forward was to surrender to the idea in that moment that, yes, I am addicted to sugar and flour, and I need to surrender to the higher power to help me move through this. And so I did. And I took the step, I made the change of taking sugar and flour out of my diet. And then, I lost a whole bunch of weight, and my weight stabilized. I got into what felt like a right-sized body for me. I lost, at that point, it was about 65 pounds, and I became healthy, and I didn't need the blood pressure medication anymore. I chose my change, because if I hadn't chosen that change, the change that would have happened would have been my body slowly but surely needing more blood pressure medication, because my weight being all over the place, that's really hard on your body. When you're on that roller coaster, that's really hard on your body. And so I know that I needed to make a change, and I had to make a choice as to what that change was going to be. I had to go inward and discern what was my best path. I had to take that step forward, that powerful step forward, saying, yes, I can do this. I have the power of the divine behind me. I can do this. There we go. Eric Butterworth gives some practical thoughts about how to bring yourself back to that place of recognizing that you are that divine power that has that choice, that has that volition, that has that power in your life to make the changes that you want. And so what he says is, in the beginning, at the heart and root of your life, the whole process of the infinite activity is present as you. The whole process of the infinite activity is present as you. It is right here and now, right where I stand. The important thing is to take some time, especially at the beginning of your day, and at as many times during the day as you want, to come back to it and remember to make a practice of starting all things at the beginning. Not beginning in a point of time, he talks about, but at the foundation, the realization. At that beginning is knowing that at the root and base of everything is the divine, and I am that. So whenever I come to a place where I don't know what the choice is, whenever I come to a place of knowing that I have to make a choice, by God, I've got to make a choice, but I don't know what to choose, I come back to the divine within me, because that infinite life knows. That infinite life, that infinite power that is through me knows what is my right choice. And when I allow myself to come to that place of accepting that truth, and sometimes that takes a little surrender, sometimes it takes stepping outside of myself and saying, really, what is it that I need in my life? What is it that I want to do? Talking about the goal, the reading that Bev did. When you make a goal, you make a choice. When you make a goal, you set that divine power in action, in motion in your life. So there's an interesting thought around that starting at the beginning of your day. Robert Frost did an interview, it was a radio interview many, many years ago, and he said, I've decided long since that when I face the day, after I wake up, before I go down and listen to the radio or read the newspaper or face my wife or go out into the world, I do two things before anything else. First thing I do is make up my bed. And the second thing I do is to make up my mind. And he says the reason for the first is that it's physical. It's something that I can actually do. So I physically make up the bed, straightening up the covers, rolling the sheets and wrinkles out of the bed. But while I'm doing this, I get the feeling of identification with my mind, that I'm making up my mind. I'm getting the wrinkles out of my mind. I'm getting myself organized and orderly. I'm beginning to think the kinds of thoughts that I want to think. I make up my bed, then I make up my mind. Then I go down and face the world, and I'm secure that no matter what happens, I can be on top of it. I thought that was beautiful. I make up my bed, and then I make up my mind. And you know what? That is such a beautiful physical reminder as we make our beds in the morning, for those of us that do. Some of us might not. As we make up our beds in the morning, just to have that physical reminder that yes, not only am I smoothing out the wrinkles on my bed, I'm smoothing out the wrinkles in my mind. So I love that.
It's tough when there's another body that's still in the bed. You know,
Yeah.
that's
Just saying.
yeah.
I make up my side of the bed
Okay,
sometimes.
that's what I do.
Just, you know,
That's
just
not.
Clean head, clean bed.
what's that?
Clean head, clean bed.
Clean head, clean bed. I love that. That's fantastic. Thank you, man. So our affirmation then for today, if you choose to say this with me. I choose changes that move me into a deeper awareness of the radiant divine life within me. And so it is. Thank you. May life bless you abundantly. May grace and goodness walk with you every day. May love and joy expand within you, and may you know peace.